What's up, YouTube? Back at you with another video, another quick take. I got my main man, my partner, my brother here.
It may not be Joe Rogan, but this is the experience you're waiting for. Thanks for having me again, bro.
My man. So we got an article courtesy of ESPN.com which says Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson set for July 20th on Netflix. The article goes on to say that Jake Paul rose to combat sports fame when he knocked out former NBA player Nate Robinson on the undercard of Mike Tyson's exhibition boxing match with Roy Jones Jr. in 2020. It says now Paul, the YouTuber turned prize fighter, and Tyson, the former heavyweight boxing champion, will meet again as opponents in what will be the most polarizing spectacle yet of the recent crossover boxing craze. It says Tyson will face Paul in a boxing match July 20th at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, in the main event of a card that will air on Netflix, officials told ESPN. It will be the streaming company's first foray into combat sports and its third live sporting event overall. Paul's most valuable promotions inked a deal with Netflix for a boxing card last November 1st, per MVP co-founder Nikiza Bedarian. It says Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is a once-in-a-lifetime dream matchup, and I anticipate it will be the most watched boxing event in modern boxing history. It is unclear how the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, which sanctions and regulates combat sports in the state, will approach what will surely be a matchup that garners plenty of criticism and attention. It is yet to be determined whether it will be classified as a pro fight or an exhibition. So there's also another article that I want to read, but I want to get your immediate thoughts on the upcoming fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Like, what did you think when you heard that they were gonna have a fight?
Man, let me tell you something. I was shocked when I heard about this. Because I was in the middle of vacation, so I wasn't even UFC. I wasn't paying attention too much. But when I heard about this, don't get me wrong. As a person who loves Mike Tyson, didn't grow up. Me and you did. We didn't grow up in his era. We didn't get a chance to watch him. Fight. In his prime at the Madison Square Garden. All the places that any fighter or any athlete would love to perform at. So in that sense, I'm hyped about it. But then again, I thought about it. You know, I don't blame Mike Tyson. I don't even blame Jake Paul. I blame you. I'm going heel turn in the words of WWE. I'm making a heel turn here. I blame the fans. You know why? Because the fans are the ones that allow this type of thing to happen. Mike Tyson is pushing 60 years old, and don't get me wrong. And I know you're more of a boxing guy than I am, and I love Mike Tyson. I would love to see him perform, but he's not 25 years old anymore. I know he did an interview 2 years ago, right after his exhibition match with Roy Jones Jr. And he was talking about how he had sciatica. There's videos of him walking through airports and having assistants and using sticks and canes. And I know this is supposed to be an exhibition match, but I would not be surprised if Jake Paul knocks him out, or tries to knock him out, because I'm pretty sure I don't know what the rule set is going to be, but I think Mike Tyson going to train his cheeks off. I think he's going to try to bring the fight. But again, we're talking about 30-year difference. Mike Tyson is still an animal, but even the animal, as it ages, is slower. It's not as athletic as it used to be. And Mike Tyson is not that anymore. So, don't get me wrong. I'm still going to watch it. Now, am I going to pay for it? That's another story. But I'll tune into it. What about you? What is your thoughts on it?
This is the dumbest fucking boxing match, if we could even call it that, in the last 10 years. This shit doesn't even really classify or fall under the category of a crossover fight, because you got a YouTuber who's 20 fucking 7 years old, and then you got fucking Mike Tyson, who is 30 years his senior with sciatica. I didn't even know that. My
Yep.
grandfather has sciatica. You know what that is? He's got sciatica in his legs. So that means when he tries to go up and down stairs, he experiences sharp pain when he's, certain bodily movements. So going up and down the stairs, he experiences sharp pain in his legs. Okay, which prevents him from physically moving around, the way that the average human being, can move around. The average man can move around. this shit is a fucking mismatch. Okay, so now Jake Paul, right? When he first started boxing, okay, a lot of people didn't take him serious as a boxer. All right. And then I would say in recent years, people have, kind of eased up on Jake Paul, I guess. You know what I'm saying? And I would say prominent boxers, I see that they've kind of welcomed Jake Paul with open arms. And honestly, the only reason why they're doing that is because he's rich and famous, okay? Because top tier elite boxers like, the Charlo brothers, Devin Haney, and the other guys that say, "Oh, I think Jake Paul is cool." You don't see them acknowledging other, younger unknown boxers that are on the come up, but they're cool with him because of possibly, again, the cosign and what might come with that type of affiliation. Now, Jake Paul, for him to create a fight like this, because this was his idea for sure. Okay, this is his idea because this is a guy who's been calling out Canelo, Conor McGregor, and then other, how should I say, the faces of boxing. Yeah, and I think he's even called out Floyd. All right, and then his brother fucking fought Floyd. For him to do this, to me, is disrespectful to the sport, in my opinion, because you get no points for knocking out Mike Tyson. You get no points from me. You get no respect whatsoever. Now, when you said that, boxing fans, it's the fault of the fans, I would blame you, sir, because you said you would watch this shit. I'm not even going to watch this shit. Okay, because if it's anything less of what happened to Francis Ngannou, a couple of days ago, this isn't even realistic, in my opinion, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to take, the legacy and cachet of a Mike Tyson, and then they're trying to hand it over on a silver platter to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy, because that's what's going to happen. Because in this age of social media and, the new generation of kids that are coming up, they don't really know Mike Tyson like that. So with a fight like this happening, let's say if Jake Paul does knock out Mike Tyson, people are going to now call Jake Paul like the GOAT of fucking boxing.
Oh yeah.
I equate this to Floyd versus Conor McGregor in a sense, because by the time that fight happened in 2017, Floyd was already the GOAT. Floyd was already Money Mayweather. You feel what I'm saying? So if Conor McGregor were to beat Floyd Mayweather back then, every ounce of Floyd Mayweather's legacy would have been tarnished, and all that cachet, fame, popularity, and success would have went straight over to Conor McGregor. And it shits on the sport of boxing, which boxing right now is already in a bad spot as it is. Okay, because first of all, pay-per-view numbers and buys are not, what they were. Okay, the biggest fights that we really want to see don't even happen. All right, and then the quote unquote big fights, the spectacles that are happening this year are Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. It hurts the sport. You see, because that was the biggest criticism to Jake Paul since he started boxing, which again, to me, he's not even a real boxer. He was fighting who? Nate Robinson, who was a fucking basketball player. Who else did he fight? Was it Nate Diaz? Again, an old, damn near 1 foot out of the sport MMA fighter. And I don't even know the other guys that he fought, because them niggas don't even really count. You see what I'm saying? Like, to me, it would make more sense if this guy was an actual ranked boxer in the sanctioning bodies of boxing, which is the WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO. This nigga's not even ranked. Okay, he exists outside of the sport, but people like to consider him an actual boxer. That nigga's not a real boxer, because he's not going to go in there and really get in there with a guy who's his age or younger or around his age, who lives and dies by the sport, who fights to put food on their table. This nigga doesn't, like, what does Jake Paul care about the sport of boxing? Why does Jake Paul box? It's not for money. It's not really for fame, because he was already famous. He's doing it to fuck up the sport. That's what he's doing. Because again, the last few fights that I could think of from 2023, all them shits look fake. And then them shits didn't do well pay-per-view wise. People didn't really talk about, these fights like that, because Spence Crawford was trash. Okay, because that wasn't like the 50-50 fight that people thought it was. Jermell Charlo versus Canelo was trash. Okay, and then the good fights were fighters that, again, the average person doesn't really talk about like that. And Ryan Garcia, who I don't like, he was right when he said that at the time when he decided to, fight Devin Haney, it's because people are not really watching the sport the way that they used to when boxing was a thing back then. Okay, so it's literally not the same. So the point that I'm making is that this fight is disrespectful to the sport of boxing, and it's turning boxing into the modern day WWE, WWF, whatever it is you want to call that shit, because all of that shit was fake. Okay, that's one. Two, Mike Tyson even really shouldn't even be doing this. And I know Mike Tyson, smokes weed and all that. He needs to stay off the weed, so he can really see what he's doing and how much of a shit clown show this is. You know what I'm saying? It's not cool, because this is a 57-year-old man with sciatica. Like, do we not value Mike Tyson enough to collectively tell him as fans that you should not be doing this with a condition like sciatica that doesn't go away? Just imagine. Would you? All right. Let's say if you were Mike Tyson, Percy, you're 57 years old. You are widely regarded as one of the best fighters to have ever stepped into the square circle. Now you have sciatica. And honestly, financially, you are doing well. You really have no reason to want to step into a square circle again, because I'm pretty sure Mike Tyson still has income. He has the what was it, hot box with Mike Tyson, and probably other endorsement deals and stuff. Like, he doesn't need to do this. Would you, as Mike Tyson, step into the ring with sciatica as I just described it to you a few minutes ago? Would you be doing this?
No.
So how could you, as a combat sports fan, support this? Now, I'm posing this question to you, and then also to everybody listen. How could you support that? I want you to answer that question. How could you watch that? You might not be buying it, but I feel like you're still supporting it by watching it. How could you do that?
Because I gotta say, and that's why I mentioned that we didn't grow up with Mike Tyson. We didn't grow up watching Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's a guy that, even as people 30 years removed from his generation, we know we hear the legends, we hear the stories. And I know he had a boxing match, I think it was 2 years ago, with Roy Jones Jr., which unfortunately I didn't get to watch, but I heard a lot of good stuff. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: the only reason why I'm watching it's the same reason why I will watch Nate Diaz. Now, this is the difference between watching and then buying the pay-per-view. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, he pirating stuff." Well, here's the truth: the reason why I watch it is because it is Mike Tyson, and that's the main reason why most other people are going to watch is because of Mike Tyson. Now, the reason why I don't support it, and it's the same reason as you said, is because Mike Tyson is pushing 60. He doesn't need to be in the ring. Now, I don't know what his financial situation is, because, obviously he's been open about, I blown through a lot of my money before I even hit, my 40s. So I'm not saying he's desperate for money at all. What I'm saying is, I think Mike Tyson's looking at it from a business perspective. Now, we may not understand it. It might be like for you, you're a fan of Will Smith. Will Smith doing, some B-level movie that doesn't, his name shouldn't be attached to. But he does it because it might bring something out of him, or it reaches a different audience. And I think for Mike Tyson, he has a fan base, but most of his fan base is, our parents, our grandparents, people who are older. Now he's looking at, Jake Paul. All right, he's a young guy. A lot of his fans are, under 35. That's a target audience that I can use for my podcast, my business, my We Strand. And you know what? Especially if this is an exhibition match. We don't know the full rules yet. But if this is an exhibition match, this could be one, I go in there, I give the fans what they want, I get a quick payday, because as we all know, Saudi Arabia is, willing to throw, Francis Ngannou $20 million to step in with, Anthony Joshua. That's not that's not the same situation. But it clearly shows that Mike Tyson is looking at it from a business perspective. I'm going to reach new audiences, I'm going to reach a new fan base, and I'm going to get a boatload of money without worrying about a potential L on my record. So, But this is why I said the fans are the ones to blame, because I will tell you this: I've always been a fan of boxing. I may be more of a UFC fan, but I'll tell you this: the UFC would not be doing something like this. They would not be putting Nate Diaz in the octagon right now with the welterweight champion, because that's sanctioned murder. People
Right.
was already people. I don't know if you know about this match because I know you don't follow UFC that much, but about right before Nate Diaz left UFC to fight Jake Paul, he was supposed to fight welterweight Hamzat Chimaev, and most fans who know Hamzat Chimaev knew that that was sanctioned murder because there was no way. I love Nick Diaz, but there was no way he was winning that fight. He was about to get beat and bloodied, and they was going to send him packing, like a dog. And people were upset about it. And even UFC, they pushed back on doing fights where veterans who over 40 should not be fighting these young contenders unless they want to continue to keep doing it. So that's why I say the fans are the ones to blame. And I just want to say one thing because I don't want to ramble too much. I got to push back on one thing you said that the boxing is going to become the WWE. I think 2 years ago was the turning point for that. Because we're seeing all these fights that shouldn't be happening in boxing, and it's becoming a new normal. Why is Jake Paul and Nate Robinson fighting, in a boxing match in the headline pay per view? He shouldn't. That should be reserved for the Charlo brothers, for the people who are active professional boxers. This
Mhm.
is the same way you would never see, Logan Paul, jump into the UFC and fight Israel Adesanya. You're not going to see that because they know that's not for the casual fans. Okay, there might be a little money, but what is that doing for our sport? Now you're going to just
Mhm.
allow a bunch of celebrities with no training, washed up veterans. No disrespect to Mike Tyson and anybody who's putting years of service into these sports, but nobody wants to see a 50-year-old Anderson Silva come out and fight Dracus Duplessis, who's the middleweight champion. Nobody wants to see that, but
Mhm.
boxing, you know, that's the circus show over there. No disrespect. I know you love boxing,
Well,
but
no, it's because it's a testament to the bad space that boxing is in right now, and somebody like Jake Paul caters to that. He's fanning that flame because he's like, all right, well, I don't see anything else, going on, so let me continue to insert myself and create these circus like mismatches that's gonna get people invested because it's that much of a fucking mismatch. What is he gonna do next? Fight freaking LeBron James or some shit? You
I
know what I'm
wouldn't
saying?
put it
Like,
past them.
he probably would. That's what I'm saying. So it's just how bad things are. But I'm gonna actually let LeVar in because he just hopped in. So let me admit him. LeVar.
Yo, yo, what's going
Okay,
on?
okay, good. All right, quickly give us your thoughts on Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul because we already talked about that. So you're jumping in late. So go ahead.
um,
What were your thoughts when you first caught wind of everything like that?
I honestly thought it was a joke, or like it wasn't serious at first. Um, I don't really know why Mike Tyson stooping down to Jake Paul's level. It doesn't really make sense to me. But in terms of the actual fight, I think that most likely Jake Paul's gonna get stopped if it's real. Uh, the fight has a possibility of being fake, obviously. Um, I just don't think that Jake Paul has the skills to beat Mike Tyson, however, in a real fight. Um, I could probably see Jake Paul getting stopped early. It might look very similar to Anthony
Joshua,
Joshua against, yep.
that's exactly what I just said. I literally just said that.
He might go out in the same brutal fashion, to be real. No head movement. He's just a puncher. That's all Jake Paul is. That's literally all he is.
So
Um,
So what would you say? So basically, what Percy just got through saying is that
mhm.
he blames the fans for this fight happening. And Percy, I guess if you could just kind of like re-expound on like your point, the point that you made as far as that's concerned.
Oh yeah. So let me say this. I don't blame Mike Tyson. I don't blame Jake Paul. I blame the fans, and the reason why I blame the fans is boxing has been in this super weird space in the last couple years, allowing these fights. Nate Robinson, NBA player, coming and fighting Jake Paul, and they allow these athletes who aren't in that sport to come in and evade the space. And I don't blame them, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. I blame the fans because they're the ones that ultimately control what happens because they're the ones who spending the money. They're the ones that are the ones that are letting their voice be heard. And so far, I see people complaining, but I also see people saying they're going to pay to watch it. So I blame the fans. What do you think about that?
Yeah. In regards to the fans, I definitely agree with that. Uh, at the end of the day, all the pay-per-view buys, all the sales, I mean, that's really what gives boxing, not even just boxing, but a lot of corporations out there, a lot of businesses in general. That's literally how they function from the money. And if people are going to keep buying it, boxing is just going to keep allowing this type of stuff to happen. And it is really sad to see because I wouldn't say this is the sport's gonna downfall from this, but it's definitely declining from having people like Jake Paul and at that point where Francis Ngannou fought Tyson Fury, having people like that just invade the sport. It is kind of uh I guess you could say cringy or corny to see. But yeah, I think that now boxing is starting to take itself a bit more seriously, like we just saw with Anthony Joshua against Francis Ngannou. I still think Tyson Fury should retire. I think that all
You
the
mean Tyson?
frauds
You
in
said
the
Tyson Fury?
yeah,
Okay.
just because of the fact that he made Francis Ngannou look better than what he was. I would say Tyson Fury he was definitely outboxing Ngannou.
Yeah,
He
but he
found
did.
Ngannou.
He didn't really get up for that fight. He didn't. He didn't get up for that
Yeah,
fight. Nah.
like didn't train. We know that he usually comes in a fight out of shape, but it's like in that fight you could just tell they had so many breaks in that fight. But with Anthony Joshua though, as soon as he knocked Francis Ngannou down, he was back on the line with him, ready to interact again. Then when he threw that right hand, Ngannou didn't even see it coming. He thought he was gonna
Right.
get a break like this was UFC or
Right.
something.
Right. But to his point, or which I was saying, like first of all, the people that would be invested in a Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, these aren't even real boxing fans. These aren't like name me one real boxing, pundit that is like, yo, man, this is the great fight. Yo, I can't wait for this. Like, no real boxing fan is taking this shit serious. The people that are gonna get a Netflix subscription, if they didn't have one already, these are all Jake Paul fans. And then I guess maybe Mike Tyson fans, but real Mike Tyson fans are gonna be like, yo, what is going on right now? Because what you missed, LeVar, a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
is that Mike Tyson has sciatica, which basically is a condition that I've seen firsthand in my grandfather, who has a hard time going up and down, stairs without, experiencing a sharp pain in his legs, which pretty much like prevents him from, applying any real pressure, on it. So certain range of of movements he can't
Mm.
do without being in pain. Mike Tyson can't even walk around, straight without like a cane or some shit like that. And you mean to tell me people are actually excited to see that? An old man fighting a 27-year-old? Come on now. Come on
Yeah,
now. Let's be real.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, let's be real.
That's
yeah.
tough.
Because I have an article that basically says it would be no surprise then if he was a little bit out of shape, especially as he is getting nearer to his 60th birthday. Some fans believe Tyson is doing himself no favors by stepping back into boxing, especially after footage of him at a UFC event that was shared on social media. It says the video, which appears to be from a few years ago, shows Tyson using a walking stick and being assisted by a person to get around the arena. One fan wrote Tyson needs to permanently retire before he gets seriously hurt. This is what I'm saying. Like, and it's not like I'm this big Mike Tyson fan, because I'm not, but I'm just looking at it from, really just a realistic perspective. Unless, again, like he just
Mhm.
goes in there and knocks out, Jake Paul in the first round, which is what should happen. But if it doesn't, he's not doing himself any favors at 57 years old. This man is 30 years his senior. So this is why I say it is Jake Paul's fault. Jake Paul is hurting the sport, because you and I both know, as real boxing fans, has not been in a good space for years.
True.
Boxing hasn't had a good year since when? Like, honestly, like I'm really trying to. All right, 2017 was a good year.
Uh,
2018 was a good year, and then 2019 was a good year. Then the pandemic happened, so we really haven't had like a solid good year in boxing since 2019, in my opinion. Since
You know,
2019.
yeah, I'll say this too, and I want to piggyback on what you're saying. I think the reason why these fights are happening too, and I agree with you, Dimitri, is because the fans aren't getting what they want, right? When we watch the landscape of boxing, all of these top guys, and I'm primarily speaking on Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and
mhm.
Tyson Fury. I love them, and we have been seeing. I know Tyson is fighting Usyk in a couple months, but the fans haven't been getting the fights they want to see. People have been clamoring to see Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder for years. Same thing with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua for years. Fans aren't getting what they want. So what was happening? Jake Paul is giving people what they want. Oh, they want.
We don't want that though. No. We don't want that. We don't want that. I didn't ask for that. That's what I'm saying. I never asked for Jake Paul to fight Mike Tyson. I never asked for Jake Paul to fight Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, none of that. If anything, I want to see him get in there with a real boxer who's around his age, who lives, breathes, and dies by the sport, who's fighting because they want to put food on the table. Like I said before, he's been cherry picking this whole entire time. Jake Paul is not a real boxer. Yo, LeVar, what I was saying to him earlier, I said, yo, Jake Paul's not even ranked. As far as I'm concerned, if I look up the rankings right now, am I going to see him in any particular weight division? And ranked by the WBA? Yeah, ranked by the WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO? Nah, he's nowhere to be found because he doesn't need the sport like a lot of other fighters do. He was rich and famous before he got into boxing. He's literally an industry plant for boxing. He's there to make it so that way now fights can be easily manipulated. Rigged. This is why when people, hear about certain big fights, they're like, yo, honestly, that shit might be rigged. You know what I'm saying? And the things, I can't even blame people because of how the last couple of years, went. So Jake Paul, honestly, has been a detriment to the sport since he's got into it. It's like, at first I was kind of like, all right, yeah, maybe. And then now it's just trickling back down. But what I want to bring up is like the frequency of rigged fights now, because it's gotten to a point where I feel like boxing fans are starting to enjoy fights less and less, or the prospect of big fights less and less, because the outcomes are more manipulated. Like somebody said on Facebook, right? How, the Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou fight, how it looked rigged. And the only reason why I say that it wasn't, because first of all, Anthony Joshua is not the face of boxing. Even if he is a heavyweight, he's a European. So he's not even from here. So he can never be the face of boxing in America. That's one. Two, if they were going to rig the fight, then why would they not rig the fight in Francis Ngannou's favor? Because I feel like they could actually make more money off of Francis Ngannou beating, a top 3 heavyweight instead of Anthony Joshua beating him. You know what I'm saying? Because now, obviously, in the future, we'll definitely get, Anthony Joshua probably versus Usyk 3, and then the Tyson Fury fight can happen now. Yeah. Because think about it, if he were to lose, then where would we really go? So then they would just keep selling Francis Ngannou versus, what's his name? Dillian White. Francis Ngannou versus Joseph Parker. They could literally just keep rinse and repeating over and over and over. All you got to do is just staple him next to the next fucking boxer.
That's what I was kind of thinking in a sense, because I was hearing, I guess you could say yesterday, a couple days ago, that people were saying that Tyson Fury didn't go as hard against Francis Ngannou because they were trying to build the Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fight. They were saying that unknowingly, Francis Ngannou probably thought that he was doing better against Tyson Fury than he actually was, and to have Anthony Joshua go in there and KO him. The reason why I don't agree with that opinion, or I guess that speculation, is because you can't fake a leg buckle like that.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't fake that. Nah. That shit looked like it hurt.
That was brutal.
This man is like freaking 250 pounds, putting all that weight on like the littlest joints in his body, in his legs. Come on now.
Yep. He was on that ground for like minutes.
Yeah, and honestly, the mistake that he made was literally like a rookie mistake. You know what I'm saying? Because one, his hands were like down. He didn't move his feet. Like his left hand wasn't there to at least like take the
block.
Yeah, to at least partially block. Because what's funny, bro, I was just sparring at an MMA gym out in Queens. And then because I'm so used to being the one kind of dishing all the damage, my little like bad habits was keeping my hands like the mid guard, not high. So my hands were never high like that. So I literally saw myself in that, because literally I went in there with a professional kickboxer. Like a heavyweight professional
Mm.
kickboxer. Mind you, right now I'm literally walking around in the high 160s, maybe, early 170s. And then he's way bigger than me. And so was the other guy that I sparred. I literally did like collectively 8 rounds with the both of them each. So it was like 4 rounds with Freddie and then 4 rounds with Alex. So it's like when I saw that, I was like, yeah, it's because, Francis Ngannou, like literally he's not a boxer to see what he was doing. To see what he wasn't doing type shit. And the thing is, personally,
Yeah,
the UFC never has this problem. They never have this problem because
true.
everybody in the UFC, they're all answering to one guy. And Dana White, I'm pretty sure, is not going to allow people come in there and then rig his fights and shit like that. You never see that. You never see that because think about it. Think about it, honestly. When Conor McGregor was at his peak, if rigged fights weren't a thing, don't you think they would have keep rigging shit to keep him at the top? Because
exactly.
Who is the face of UFC right now that people talk about just as much as they talked about Conor McGregor at his peak back in the day? I ain't heard of nobody.
The only person is John Jones.
And he's not even active like that.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. They don't have this problem. But when it comes to the 4 different sanctioning bodies and then all of these different networks, you got the Bob Arums and then the Eddie Hearns and then the Al Haymans and all of that. Like, remember when we did the quick take about Charlo Canelo? That was my whole thing. I was like, yo, nigga, that shit look rigged. And then you really got to ask yourselves, it's like if somebody legit told you, yo, I will give you $50 million to just throw this fight. A nigga would be lying if they said they wouldn't take that shit, bro. Because 50 mil after taxes, you're still taking home like a good ass chunk of money. Because how much taxes can they really take out of 50 mil? You know what I'm saying? Exactly. It's not like you're walking away with just $2 million, off of a $50 million purse. Like the average person is going to take that. So that's the only rationale that I could put on Mike Tyson for taking this shit. Because they probably gave him the bag. They threw him the bag, honestly. Because I think, to be honest with you, just my prediction is that this is probably going to be one of the bigger fights of Jake Paul's so-called, boxing career. Because Mike Tyson is the most famous person that he's been in there with. Now, obviously, he's 57 years old, but the word of mouth is going to be there now because, again, Jake Paul is like the talk of the town, on TikTok, YouTube, and shit with his millions of fucking fans. And then Mike Tyson, again, when we talk about boxing, we literally talk about Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and Floyd Mayweather. Like, I would say those are, like, obviously they're not the only GOATs of boxing, but they're the ones that are the most talked about. Like, the overall, face of the sport, we talk about those guys before we talk about, Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Evander Holyfield. Like, people know them, but they don't know them the way everybody knows those 3 that I just mentioned.
Right. Yeah, they don't have
like basketball.
Influence.
Just like basketball. When you think about basketball, you think about Shaq, you think about Kobe, you think about Michael Jordan, you think about freaking, Magic Johnson, like those type guys. You know what I'm saying? Like those faces, like because they're bigger than the sport. Like Mike Tyson was bigger than the sport of boxing. Floyd Mayweather was bigger than the sport of boxing. Muhammad Ali, the reason why he was so great was because he stood for something that was greater than the sport itself.
True.
So you take all of that and then you put that in a ring with, again, like a popular, honestly, like Jake Paul to me is like the white Tyson out of boxing, basically. On some shit. I said that. Yeah, and then if he beats him, it's just gonna be like a shit show,
bro. Honestly. If he beat, no, I ain't watching boxing anymore. If he beat him, but I ain't gonna lie to the condition that he has. Mike Tyson, did he have that when he fought Roy Jones too? And because he looked pretty good against Roy Jones.
Probably,
I heard it was after.
Oh, it was after. Okay,
yeah.
So if it's after, I don't know, because I mean, Mike Tyson's whole game for the most part. Head movement. He's moving his feet a lot, his legs a lot. So if he can't really move his head, it might be easy for Jake. Not saying that Jake Paul's a good boxer, but it might be easy for Jake Paul to find Mike Tyson's head. He definitely not gonna be as dynamic in the ring if he can't move his legs. Like,
man, I don't know. If Jake Paul had any ounce of respect for the sport, he would not do this. Like, he would not be doing this. And mind you, I barely respected that dude before. Like, I will respect anybody who makes a success out of themselves doing what they want to do. All right. And then, he's got that blue Smurf, or he had that blue Smurf Lamborghini. I was like, hey, I respect it. You mansion, you got the girls. Hey, I respect it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even gonna front. Like, I would maybe even dabble, in the sport a little bit if I had that sort of freedom where I could, have that freedom in my career where I could do some shit like that. But at the same time, I would not get in there with a guy that's 57 years old with sciatica.
True.
I have to keep emphasizing that because, again, like, I actually know what that is. It's like I'm coming in there. Like, I'm not going to be, like an NBA rookie or some shit. Like, how, like, guys, they get drafted in the NBA and then their name is hot, like Zion Williamson, freaking, John Morant, all those guys. Like, they were hot when they first. And then the first thing that they say is, oh, I'm going to be the next Kobe, or I'm better than Jordan or some shit like that. No. The reason why the sport is what it is today is because these boxers, they're standing on the shoulders of a Mike Tyson. They're standing on the shoulders of Floyd Mayweather, of Muhammad Ali. They stand on their shoulders. The reason why fighters are overpaid today is because of Floyd. Fighters weren't getting paid the bag the way that they are now, before Floyd. Because you had to be like the guy. Again, like Mike Tyson was rich because he was the guy, but how many other boxers of his time were that rich like he was? You didn't see that shit all the time. So it's a certain respect that I feel like Jake Paul has to have, but of course he's not going to have that because, again, like, he's just like, a Kai Cenat type dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these like fucking like hype ass niggas. Like,
Content creator,
like that.
You know what? I'll say this though, and this is why I'm not mad at Jake Paul. Because I look at it, think about your house, right? Think about your house. If you allow people to just walk up in your door, not knock, sit on your couch, take their shoes off, and just chill like it's their apartment, people are going to do it, right? And we see this in other industries. We see this in acting too. And the problem is, it's up to the fighters. The fighters are the ones that got to, start complaining, because here's the problem. Jake Paul, yeah, we're sitting around complaining about him, right? The problem is the boxers aren't doing that. You don't see a lot of Tyson Furies or, people, Devin Haney's coming out, yo, why is Jake Paul fighting? Why am I on his undercard? I'm the professional fighter here. Why am I on his undercard?
Well, that's true. I do agree with you. Like, they should be gatekeeping that shit. But then I told you exactly why. I told you exactly why they're not. The reason why they're not doing it is because what fighters value most today, the Ryan Garcias, Devin Haney's, Errol Spence, the Charlo brothers, all these guys, with the exception of maybe like a Sean Porter or a Keith Thurman, they all value like being rich and like money and all that shit. Yeah, like that, like the elite, like what comes with being a rich and famous boxer, and they respect other fighters that are on their level or other people that are on their level. So the only reason why they like Jake Paul is because he's rich and famous. Because what I said before you came in, LeVar, is that, do you ever really see these top tier boxers really showing love to like unknown names and shit like that? Like, they don't. They don't, because I thought, I was like, yo, I figured, maybe like the Charlos would have been like, yeah, I don't fuck with Jake Paul. In fact, they said the opposite. Jamel said the opposite. He was like, yo, Jake Paul cool. He cool, all that. And I'm like, yeah, the reason why you think he cool is because he's rich like you. Yeah. But if this was a YouTuber like who maybe wasn't nearly as famous as he was, them niggas would be like, yo, he's not a bot. They would talk shit about him. They would talk shit. So they like dollar signs. That's what they like, because then to get on a Jake Paul card is just a phone call for them if they ever feel like they need that. And he will probably do it for them. Why? Because they showed him love when he first started doing the shit. They didn't shit on him. You see what I'm saying? Because Jake Paul is the guy now that's having these fight cards that have the most attention. Because really, I honestly, if I'm being honest with you, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is probably going to get more views than Canelo versus Jaime Munguia. Facts.
Easily.
Facts. Yep. And that shit is on, and it's on Netflix on top of that. And it's on Netflix. So, and everybody has Netflix now. So the viewership on that is gonna be crazy, because I don't think they're gonna do like a pay-per-view, upcharge for that. So it's like you have Netflix, but then you have to pay an additional X amount of dollars, to watch it. No, if you have Netflix, you're probably gonna be able to watch that. So that's the viewership, like the streams, I bet you is gonna be crazy. That bigger than who people say is the face of boxing now, which is Canelo.
Oh yeah, and before I let you go, I want to say this too, and this is the same criticism I had about NFL, because in certain sports, even UFC, right, you often see people, giving celebrity shout-outs, right, but you don't allow someone who's not in your industry to come up in here and dictate how you operate, right? For instance, like during the Super Bowl, right? And I had this criticism. I know I'm going a little off topic, but it's the same thing. The Super Bowl is a football sport, and I saw headlines that Travis Kelce, who was in the Super Bowl, they didn't
With
refer
Taylor
to him
Swift.
they didn't even call him Travis Kelce. They was like Taylor Swift and her boyfriend. And you know who I blame? I don't even blame Taylor Swift. I blame the NFL. Why? Because they allowed her, and I'm not mad at her because she didn't do it. The NFL leaned into this and was like, "Oh, we could use this as a cash cow, make some money, and it's going to bring attention." But the problem is now you're allowing your athlete to be delegated to the name, just the boyfriend of a pop star. Like that's
Exactly.
crazy, and that's the thing with boxing. I do like boxing. I do watch some of the fights, but I can guarantee you right now, if I ask you, you both, outside of not Deontay, aside of Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou, and I was just thinking about this name, the co-main
Who?
card, Zhang and
Oh,
the
Zhang. Oh,
Zhang
Zhang.
and Parker.
Zhang. Zhilei
Zhang
Zhang.
and Parker, right? Who was the other fighters on the card? You can't
I
even
ain't
tell
even
me
watching.
one
I'm gonna
person.
keep it
You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
and this is why, like me and Dimitri, we'll talk about this, and this is I will say about the UFC. When you watch cards, they will at least promote the other fighters on the prelims, early prelims. Like they will give you some type of information about these fighters. So when you're watching these fights, you actually at least care about who's fighting. Boxing is become a
Yeah.
popularity contest, and this is why Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Deontay, they all got to start speaking up about the sport because if they don't, I guarantee you, 2 years from now, they ain't gonna be caring about no Deontay Wilder, Anthony
No, we
Joshua.
don't care about Deontay Wilder now. Like,
Yeah,
I don't give a shit about him now. But you know why? But you know why? It's because the fighters, like, honestly, they're overpaid. So when you're paying like let's say again, like the top 1-2% of fighters 10-20 million dollars, they're so satisfied with how much they're getting paid, which is probably to do very little. What do they have to be mad about? Like, what do they have to complain about? And I think to what you said, it was like that back in the day because the faces of boxing now, they weren't the faces of boxing in 2015, 2016, because there was a point where nobody knew who Errol Spence was. There was a point where nobody knew who Terrence Crawford was. There was a point where nobody knew who Devin Haney was. But mind you, they were promoted because Errol Spence used to be on undercards. Like he was on an Adrian Broner, Sean Porter undercard back in 2015, when Broner and Sean Porter fought. Devin Haney, no one really knew, who he was. It wasn't until like the faces now kind of moved out of the way, and then there was a lane for him, to come up. You know what I'm saying? So it used to be like that. Like now it's not like that because they don't even really set it up now where like, you can get on a popular undercard and then you can get that exposure. And then they only really save that for, again, like the faces. So it was like, let's say the only other card that did I even really like? It was like LeVar, like David Benavidez versus Andrade back in when that happened. Who was the co-main event? It was Jamal Charlo and Jose Benavidez. And between the two of them, Charlo was the one who had the name because he used to be a main event, fighter. But because his layoff was that long, they were like, yo, we're going to put you, as the co-main. But again, like basically what I'm saying is, the relatively like unknowns, they never get that platform anymore. So you are right. Like, but I will say, in boxing's credit, they used to do that, but now, that's not happening. And again, I'm afraid for the sport because at least like the real sport, I'm talking about the real athletes, not the Jake Pauls, because there's always going to be, an opportunity for him to just grab any random celebrity and then just get them on there. And then again, if he's asking a former baseball player or former football player, like, yo, I'm going to give you $10 million to get knocked out by me, they're going to do it. So let's say if Odell Beckham Jr. or Antonio Brown or some shit, they feel like making an extra $10 million one day, all they got to do is just fight Jake Paul. So Jake Paul always.
I heard Tyreek Hill calling out Jake Paul.
Yeah, like they're always gonna have an opportunity for that. But whereas boxers, again, there's like only really like a small window for certain boxers, and then like that window, you could be the best of the best, but that window always gets shorter and shorter and shorter because boxing is a what have you done for me lately type of sport. And when the fights that we want to see from certain guys aren't happening and time is passing by and then all we're getting in the meantime is Jake Paul fights, the Jake Paul fights is what people are going to primarily start to care about. at some point. And then boxing as a whole is gonna like, because it's bad enough it's on Amazon Prime right now. And why do you? And honestly, really think about it. Why do you think Showtime decided to step away from boxing after all of these years? Why now? Because boxing is like it's heading for like a crash landing, and they wanted to get off the plane before that shit crashes. Because every single fight last year pretty much was a pay-per-view fight. Every fight, literally every fight on Showtime was damn near pay-per-view. I don't even know if they do showbox anymore. You see what I'm saying? So that's why. So it's like boxing where it's headed because it's on Amazon Prime right now. That is a weird spot to watch pay-per-view boxing. That is weird. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's just I'm afraid. And mind you, boxing is my favorite sport. Like I love boxing. Like I love me some fucking boxing. I hate that it's headed that way. But what I'm saying is Jake Paul, he's hurting the sport. And hopefully people will feel that way, you know, at some point. People don't see it now. Most people don't have that type of consciousness. But me, I see the chess moves. I see it. So again, he is just a white high Sinat, industry plant putting in there. For real, like, yo, that's why they say industry plants is really a fucking thing. Because why is it that Jake Paul is really the only nigga that's doing this shit the way that he's doing it right now and getting away with it on top of that? Because he's
people actually compliment him for it. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Because he was.
I would say, oh, sorry.
No, go.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, in terms of the decline of boxing, this might be a very controversial take, but one of the reasons why I think that boxing is declining very badly is because of people like Mayweather. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Mayweather was a trash boxer or anything like that. He obviously had one of the best defenses in boxing. There's no question on how good he is in terms of his skill. But one detriment that he's done to the sport is that he popularized cheating in the sport. He popularized ducking underneath the waist. He popularized holding his opponents when he got hurt. And when you're able to cheat like that, he opened the door for people like Devin Haney and all these other people who have the really bladed stance to start cheating in the sport. And when they get wins like that, or if they just do that in the sport itself, it makes boxing look very boring. And that's why people don't like to watch it. Now, Mayweather, he got most of his popularity from, I guess you could say, antagonizing other races like Mexicans when he went against Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya. And then obviously Asians. He told Manny Pacquiao to go make him some sushi, or he was gonna make him go make him some sushi or some shit. Like he was definitely on his racist rant there. But at the end of the day, as long as boxing will allow people to cheat, the sport is gonna keep declining. Also, they need open scoring. I still don't understand why boxing doesn't have open scoring right now. Like,
you mean like, what do you mean by open scoring?
Like, essentially, after a round is over, they should essentially show everyone and the fighters the judges should show everyone who they think won the round.
Okay.
Exactly, who they think won the round, so the fight can become more competitive, as where a fighter wouldn't just think that they're up when they're really not in the judge's eye, because that honestly makes the sport boring too. Think about it, if you're up or if you think you're up in your mind by like 3 rounds, but then you look at the scorecard on the scoreboard and you see that most judges have it tied, that's going to make you more enticed to want to come that next round and be more competitive. And without open scoring and allowing cheating, I just think boxing is going to keep going down and down and down. And like y'all said, Jake Paul is in a era now, like, just really corrupting the sport. I really
he's a fucking virus. He's literally the Jake Paul virus, like, honestly. But you are right though. Like they should have like the announcer be like, so the judges had, you know what I'm saying? Like who the fuck? Freaking Devin. Like, so let's say if Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, when they fight on the 20th, of April, the judges will be like, all right, so round 1 goes to Ryan Garcia by way of judges scoring or some shit like that. And so then like they know. But I also feel like that should be too distracting, honestly. Like, I don't know. It depends. Like I see what you're saying. Like it could help. It just depends on the fighter that you are. You know what I'm saying? Because like I just feel like if I'm so worried about what they say at the end of it, then it's gonna kind of take my mind off of what's happening in the fight. That's just me personally. I mean, like maybe somebody else would probably benefit from that, but me, I just feel like I feel like maybe they should just tell like the coaches that shit. But I don't want to see it. So it's like I feel like the fighters shouldn't see it, but the audience should see it. So So like
it could be like takes around. Yeah, I just think the only problem is when, like, it could definitely deter you, but I guess the more damaging issue is losing the fight because you didn't know that you were down. That's the thing
That's
that
true.
I
Yeah.
really,
Yeah, but
yeah.
but what fighter is dumb enough to really think like, oh, like, cause like you,
Lomachenko,
yeah,
Lomachenko,
like
he's
mad dumb. That's
stupid.
what I'm saying. Like you kind of have like a sense of whether or not like you won or lost. Like the judges kind of don't really need to say that if you've been boxing long enough to really know. So if you know,
Yeah,
like like the guy that I'm fighting out jabbed me, or he landed the better punches, or he just overall got the better
yeah,
of me that round, like nigga, you know what I'm saying? Like Lomachenko, that nigga knew he fucking lost. That's why he was crying. But
You know, I,
now go ahead,
yeah,
Percy.
no, y'all both right. LeVar, I will definitely agree with you on that because I know in the UFC
mhm,
that's a common complaint that a lot of fighters and fans say about the scoring because I don't know too much about in the boxing world, but I know in the MMA world there's a lot of controversial scoring, a lot of like, yo, I thought I won that fight, and blatant robberies too. So I definitely agree with you on that. I will also say one thing too
yeah.
about boxing. One of the problems boxing has, and y'all might disagree on me on this, but I've been watching a lot of the fights recently. Look, Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou fight, good fight, but bro, 12 hours for 8 fights, it should not take that long. It should
What?
not take that long. Like
True.
the card started, if I'm not mistaken, like 12 p.m. Eastern time. There's no reason Francis and Anthony Joshua should have started fighting at 8 o'clock at night. It shouldn't have taken that long. And I think boxing's problem, I think all of these things would be resolved if boxing actually made a quicker pace. Because now at this point, and I feel this, I don't know if y'all feel this way, but I'm like this. I watched the first fight, and then there's a whole hour in between. At this point, I'm like, yo, I just want the main event to start. I don't care about any of these
Exactly.
fights. And I think that's why a lot of fans aren't thinking about the like LeVar was talking about the cheating, the blatant, grabbing, the blatant, all this stuff that's going on, is because fans are tired. Like, yo, I want to watch the main event. Let's go. Let's speed this up. I think if
Yep.
boxing took that, like, they went to the WWE route. Fire pyros like they Randy Orton. Fighters walking, boxers walking to the ring like they Stone Cold. I'm like, yo,
Yeah,
what do
Anthony
y'all?
Joshua been doing that his whole fucking career. He always has some shit like pyrotechnics and fireworks and national anthems. Like
Mhm.
Kell Brook, same shit. Kell Brook always plays the fucking all of the lights on by Kanye West every single time he walks in. There's always like a big thing.
And I get that. Like, as a fighter, you have a brand. You want people to think of you in a certain way. I understand. I know Deontay Wilder does the same thing,
Fuck
but you
yeah,
can do that. Like, I don't want to always compare MMA and boxing, but I will say at least in the UFC, you will come out, fighters like Israel Adesanya, he danced to one of his
Yep.
intros, but it was quick. Like he did his dance, he got to the ring, got his ass in the octagon. Like, all this, walking around, announcers taking his sweet time to Anthony Joshua. Like, yo, bro, say Anthony Joshua, let's get this fight on.
but
Like,
what's funny is because like when you say that you hate to compare like boxing to UFC, but this is what I always say about comparisons. Like you need to compare because that's how you create standards for yourself. So when you let's say you watch a fight card UFC, you see how seamless it is. Like every single fight happens in a timely manner. You're not there for 5 hours. You know what I'm saying? Those things don't happen in UFC. And then whereas boxing, that tends to happen sometimes. Like I think it was really
Yep.
only that card because it's not that bad. It's just like how long
Yeah.
the card takes depends on how long the fight goes. So if a fight goes 12 rounds or full 10, then yeah, it's gonna be a minute. I didn't really see, the fight because one, I fell asleep, so I actually didn't watch the Joshua Ngannou fight live. Like, in fact, I woke up like an hour after that because I tried to stay awake to watch the shit, but I just wasn't trying to watch, the undercard.
True.
But that's how something needs to be improved. If all I've ever watched in my entire life was long ass Saudi Arabian fight cards and shit like that, then I'll never know something is wrong until I watch UFC and see what they got going on over there and see how they run things. But again, like this is what I always say. Dana White is passionate about the sport of MMA. And let's say like you would agree, right, Percy? Like he is passionate,
yeah.
like, he's a legitimate fight fan. And not to say Eddie Hearn and Al Heyman aren't, but I look at them as guys in suits. What they tend to really prioritize is numbers and analytics and revenue.
Yeah.
What will make them the most the most revenue at the end of the day. They don't really care about anything
about
else.
boxing. Yep.
Yeah, so
that's Eddie Hearn for, because I know for a fact Eddie Hearn can't box. I'm not gonna say that Dana White is some great UFC fighter or anything like that.
No, he's
but
not.
He definitely understands his sport. He understands his sport pretty well.
Exactly.
And
yeah, and we
Eddie
don't.
Hearn probably don't have a clue of what boxing is.
Yeah, we don't have that an equivalent of Dana White that actually has the say so and is in control. What does Mauricio Suleiman, who is the chairman of the WBC, what the fuck does he know? He's just a guy in suit who cares about, like I said, dollars at the end of the day. So if the best fights that we want to see never happen, these guys are not going to lose an ounce of sleep at the end of the day. They're not going to be losing any sleep, because when they check their bank accounts, they're seeing 50 mil, 60 mil, $80 million. So what do they care? And it's the same thing with the fighters in boxing. Now, I will say you have certain exceptions, like maybe Anthony Joshua or Terrence Crawford, where shit, I mean, you know, they're not afraid about making the best fights if they make sense for them in that particular moment. You know, like Terrence Crawford may not want to fight, you know, Jaron Ennis, but you know he wanted to fight Charlo. You know he wants to fight Canelo. So you know he will make the best fights. That will make the best sets for him. He gets nothing out of staying at 147 to fight Jaron Ennis. But then again, let's say you got like an Errol Spence. I love Errol Spence, but he ain't in a rush to come back to boxing, obviously. He looking at it like, if I'm not getting the Crawford fight, then I'm just going to drag my feet on whenever I do come back to the sport. You know what I'm saying? Keith Thurman, we ain't seen Keith Thurman in 2 years. The last time he fought was this time, 2022. It doesn't even feel like that, but it's been that long. And he's coming back and he's fighting Tim Tszyu. You see what I'm saying? Like the best of the best, these guys, they don't really care because they've gotten overpaid. See, that's why UFC fighters, they're not overpaid. In fact, a lot of them are underpaid for what they do. And that's how you keep getting the fights, because they need to put food on their table. The average UFC fighter, and Percy, correct me if I'm wrong, but these niggas be making 5-6 figures. And then the fighters that do make 7 figures are making $1-2 million. You don't, Canelo was the one that you hear, oh, they offered him $50 million to fight Jamal Charlo. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, yo.
Like, where are you getting all that money?
Yeah, like, what is he doing to deserve that type of money? Like, I can only imagine how much he's getting paid to fight Jaime Munguia. And who is Jaime Munguia in the grand scheme of the sport? Nobody knows this guy. Nobody knows him. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're not a lot of, again, the fighters themselves and the networks and the, you know, sanctioning body CEOs, they're not losing any sleep over the suffrage and the, you know, unsatisfaction of us boxing fans and shit like that. So that's why I said, like basically boxing is in need of massive reform. That's probably never going to happen, because I don't ever see the, you know, like, let's say the WBC, WBA, WBO, IBF unifying and then it being one singular sanctioning body. There's too many hands in the pot, because I can only imagine how many different, you know, like, people work for these different organizations. So how does that happen? That means you got to lay people off, then you got to close certain offices, then, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's too much shit, because boxing has been that way since the mid, you know, 1900s, late 1900s. You know, you've always had different belts. If I'm not mistaken, again, I didn't grow up watching boxing, but I'm pretty sure you had different belts at the time. Now, fighters were fighting each other all the time. Why? Because they weren't overpaid. That's what I said. I feel like Mike Tyson were very few and far between. You know, where he was like the richest guy. Like he was making more money than Eddie Murphy, you know, fighting back in the 80s and shit like that. But, you know, that's my opinion on all of that, man.
Yeah. I'll say this real quick before I let you go, LeVar. I would say boxing needs to get back to, you know, its original form. Like, stop allowing 100 people in the ring that aren't fighting. Like, get them out of there. Like, make this about the boxes. And boxes, again, like, I go on X, formerly Twitter, for people who don't know. I go on X a lot of times, and I see professional boxers calling out MMA fighters, which I understand. But it's like, look, Francis Ngannou went in to fight Anthony Joshua and got paid more than Devin Haney, most of these other, you know, named boxers. Like, how's this happening now?
You said Anthony Joshua got paid?
No. Francis Ngannou got paid more than most professional, you know, famous boxers.
Oh yeah. For what? Like, for what? That's what I said. Like, what has this man done to deserve a $10-20 million payday? It's not like the average person does not know who Francis Ngannou is. That's Floyd Mayweather money. That's what I said. They're hurting the sport by overpaying these fighters. And you're getting less out of them, because why do I have to fight 2 more times this year when I literally just made $50 million before taxes? I could literally just sit and chill, you know what I'm saying, until the next $50 million payday next year. So I could literally take a 11-month vacation for the rest of the year and be okay financially. I don't have to worry about anything. That's like Jamal Charlo right now. Jamal is my favorite fighter. But every time I see this dude, he's always, you know, in the Bahamas, you know, somewhere. Why? Because he probably got paid the bag to fight Jose Benavidez. Who is Jose Benavidez? He didn't even care to make weight because, he's like, I had to pay $250,000. I just gave it to him. Why? Because he probably got paid M's to do nothing. So, and honestly, this is all by design. Like there is a conscious effort to you know, like corrupt boxing to the point where it could just be more manipulated because they see how much money is in it. Because obviously, if they're overpaying these fighters, is because there has to be some big return on that investment at some point down the line, even if it isn't right then and there in terms of that fight. Because again, the numbers are not the same. People are not doing Mayweather pay-per-view numbers anymore. They're not. So I don't know. Like I said, times has changed. You know, times has definitely changed, and it's getting worse, yo. It's getting worse, and it's making way for again the Kai Cenat of boxing, pretty much.
I don't even know what's gonna happen in the next 5 years. To be honest, boxing might not even be a thing.
Yeah, it might. It might be like a shred of what it used to be. Like literally, it's gonna be a shred, like a shell of its former self. Because again, you don't have HBO now. You don't have Showtime anymore now. And those were like, again, like the biggest networks in terms of boxing. And they're gone. They're gone. Yep. And I don't know, Amazon, they don't got the money, you know, to be putting up with PBC and all that shit, at least not for long, because PBC, you know, before we end it, PBC can't keep doing it where every single top tier card is pay-per-view. They can't keep doing that because, again, there's some, you know, return on investment somewhere, but I can't see how that's going to help when you're putting all that money into something. People are not paying for the pay-per-views, and literally you just paid $15 million each for the two main event fighters. Needless to say about how much money you paid for the co-main event, and then all the other fighters, you know, down. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know.
I guess I'll just get my conclusive thoughts here. Besides from the two things that I said earlier about why boxing sucks, about the allowance of cheating and things like that, the final part of it is the perversion of the sport itself. So I would just say this: there's supposed to be a ranking system in boxing. First of all, besides the ranking system, why are there 4 different belts for each sub weight division? Why is there not just one belt like the UFC has? I'm not saying boxing has to be exactly like the UFC, but you take away the importance of what a championship is when you just give so many of them per subdivision. Like, I understand undisputed and stuff like that, collecting the belts, but how about just have one belt and have everybody else try and beat that challenger rather than trying to have everybody collecting the belts? Because it becomes so perverted in the fact that if a fighter doesn't feel like fighting that other fighter with the belt, they don't have to. Like Canelo, for example, he could just duck. Like when he lost to Bivol, he should have honestly, like, I'm not saying he should have just went back and rematched Bivol, like been forced to, but I mean, he could just duck that fight and then go fight whoever he wants now. And if there's no number one, well, I mean, obviously there's number one contenders in boxing, but it's clear as day that you don't have to fight the number one contender if you don't want to. Right, we've seen it so many times. And unless they force these boxers to actually start doing this in a ranking system, and like, honestly, if I was the leader of the corporation of boxing, I would make only one title. I don't care about all these other subtitles and anything like that. There's one title, and whoever holds that title has to defend that title. Because another thing is, in boxing, if you become undisputed, you could just move up and weight and then like pretend like you fought everybody there. But with that being said, though, like if you have one belt and you have to defend that thing, it gives way more meaning to being that top person, because the more you defend it, then that means that you're essentially greater. Because I honestly give people more credit for defending a championship longer than having a championship, leaving, and probably not even defending it at all. Like I don't really understand that. Like as long as the sport is perverted, they allow cheating to happen, things like that, and no open scoring, boxing is just gonna, it might even like be gone in like 10 years, maybe a decade.
That's a fact. But all that division and perversion is all for money. That's all it is. And boxing is just becoming an overall cash grab for CEOs and guys in suits and stuff like that, and the fighters themselves. And then the legacy and the entertainment aspect is just going out the window. But on that note, what are your thoughts? Please be sure, as always, to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.